I'm a computational geneticist, and how did I get here? Well, so what happened during my PhD in computer science was that the genomic revolution happened. So the Human Genome Project was sequenced. A few facts about the human genome. Our genome is length 3 billion. Within this room, there's only about 10 million positions that vary and explain all the differences between us, how we look. You and the person sitting next to you differ by only 1 in 1,000 positions. And now there are these new technologies that allow us to measure 1 million positions in the DNA simultaneously and for very cost effectively. And this technology really transformed human genetics and medicine. And there's been huge, huge progress in the last 5-10 years in disease. And also, these technologies have had a big influence on an area called population genetics, which is the study of human populations with DNA. And today, what I'll be talking about is a story in population genetics that's very interesting to us. Okay? So what I want to talk about is a question that's really fundamental to why we're here at BNOT today. So who are the Jews? Okay? What is it about the Jewish population that makes us want to come to Jewish events or be part of a community? What makes us feel a community? So in one way, one view, the traditional view, is that the Jews in the diaspora are descendants of a common population, ancient population in Israel. And so even though the Jews spread all over the world, they still have some kind of a link, a genetic link between them. And this is the traditional view. But there's other views, which are that the Jews are co-religionists, meaning that the Jewish people are not necessarily related to each other, but they all have the same religion. So in this view, what happened is that particularly the view is that the Ashkenazi Jews actually came from Central Europe, converted to Judaism, and that happened so long ago that the records were lost that they never were in the Middle East. So these are the two views. And so so what I'm going to talk to you about is how this new technology lets us address this question. Okay, so whenever we talk about who are the Jews, we're talking about a question of populations, and we need to frame this in the framework of study of human populations. So humans, all humans originated in Africa about 200,000 years ago, and they spread throughout the world in the last 60,000 years. So everyone is related to somebody in Africa. Like any two people on the planet have some common ancestor in Africa about 100,000 years ago. And then 3,000 years ago, there's an ancient Jewish population in Israel. There are also Europeans. They got there about 40,000 years ago, and there's also plenty of non-Jewish people in the Middle East as well. And so the modern Europeans of today are descendants of these ancient Europeans. The modern Middle Eastern populations are descendants of these ancient Middle Eastern populations. And so the real question that we have for who are the Jews is how do these two populations, Ashkenazi and Sephardic Jews, fit into this picture? Okay? And there's really two possible explanations. One is that the Jews are co-religionists, meaning that the Jews are the Ashkenazi Jews, for example, descended from Europeans, and the Sephardic Jews descended from the ancient Middle Easterners, but they're not necessarily linked through an ancient population. That's the co-religionist view, theory. The other theory is the common population, meaning that the Jews are actually both the Ashkenazi Jews and Sephardic Jews are descendants of this ancient Jewish people. Okay? So how can we answer that question? Well, one way we can answer that question is if we had a family tree of humanity, okay? So this is a family tree. Here's me, here's my sister, my parents, right? Here's some guy in the back, another Jew, his parents, and up here is Adam and Eve, and we just learned that they lived in Africa, not the Garden of Eden. And here's the tree. And so what we can do is we can then look to see in the tree, do I have ancestors in Jerusalem from BC 500. If I do, okay, there's an ancient Jewish population, right? And I'm related to it, and then that suggests the common population. But unfortunately, we don't have birth records going back for 100,000 years, right? So this is not going to work. But in fact, we don't need the entire tree. We can use the structure of the tree. So for example, if the structure of the tree looks like this, meaning that this person in the back is related to me only through Africa, okay, then what that suggests is that there's no ancient Jewish population that we're both related to each other, and that really suggests that we're co-religionists. On the other hand, if we're related much more recently, okay, that suggests that there might be ancient Jewish population. So the key idea is that we don't need the actual tree to answer this question. We just need to be able to identify relationships between individuals and somehow date them to see how recent they are. Fortunately, this new technology allows us to do that. So the way that we can identify people are related is basically by looking at their DNA. These technologies let us measure the DNA very precisely. So when we take two individuals, we just line up their DNA, and what we do is we look for shared segments between the DNA, because shared segments means that individuals are related. Okay? For example, with your sibling, you share 50% of your DNA. With your cousin, 25%, it goes down. So the basic idea is that we can use this new technology. Okay? We can then measure the amount of DNA that you share between two individuals, and then you can then look up in this table to see how related you are. Okay? And that's the basic idea. So now I'm going to talk to you how a group led by Harry Oster and NYU used this technology and this idea to answer the question that we're interested of who the Jews are. So they took DNA samples from representative of the four populations. They took 34 Ashkenazi Jews. They took 34 Turkish Jews representing Sephardic population, 25 Russians representing modern Europeans, and 34 Druze. And what they did is they applied these technologies and measured the relatedness between all of the individuals. Okay? And so the experiment was to compare if there was more sharing within Jewish populations. If that's the case, then that really suggests that there must be a common Jewish population which caused this additional sharing, right? On the other hand, if there's equal sharing between Jewish populations and non-Jewish populations, well, then that suggests that the relatedness that we would observe between the Jews is actually the same relatedness that we just get just being all from Africa, 100,000 years ago. So that's this co-religion. So they measure this, and so in the data, the results were really surprising, really striking. The amount of relatedness between Ashkenazi and Turkish Jews was something like 5 times the amount of relatedness between the European and Middle Eastern population. So it was very strong evidence that the Jews do have a common population. So even more interesting, within a population, the Jews are very closely related to each other. Okay, so if there's somebody here that's sitting next to you that you don't know, it's actually your fourth cousin. Okay, it's not really your fourth cousin because the segments that you share are much smaller, but there's more of them. So it's actually more like your seventh cousin, but maybe 20 different ways. Okay. And this structure, this genetic structure, explains why there's a much higher disease prevalence of rare diseases in the Jewish populations. Okay, so far we've talked about how to relate populations together, but we can also apply this technology to relate individuals. Okay, understand how individuals are related. So here's actually an example, and this is called a maternal tree. So there's a piece of DNA that's passed from mother to daughter that's in the mitochondria. And what you get is that this tree relates everyone's mothers together. So here's my mom, Daniel's mom, and Amir's mom, and how they're related all the way going back up to Eve. Okay? And here you'd have so let's say Eve had this piece of DNA, and then over time, mutations accumulate. So then all the descendants that would have this mutation. So for example, I have both a blue and a green mutation because I'm along this branch. So does Daniel, because he's along this branch here. But Amir only has the blue mutation and not the green mutation. Okay? So now, of course, we don't know the tree, okay? Because we don't have this historical records, but we can collect the DNA, and then looking at the DNA, we can try to figure out what the tree is. And that's the kind of work that my group does. So for example, if you look here, you can see that myself and Daniel, we both have a blue and a green mutation, while Amir doesn't. So that really suggests that we would be closer in the tree than Amir. Okay? So the other thing that we can do is we can try to count how many ancestors we have. And so we can use the same kind of analysis. And so this was applied to the Ashkenazis, whatever. And from the DNA, we estimate the number of ancestors. And remember, this is using the mitochondria, so these are mothers. Basically, we're counting the number of mothers that we have. And so whenever I think of mothers and ancestry, you think of the matriarchs, right? You have like the classical matriarchs in the Bible, Sarah, Rebecca, Leah, and Rachel. Okay, so it turns out that the Ashkenazi Jews also have a set of matriarchs, okay? From this analysis, here they are. So they are, so basically there's these 4 women that together they are the mothers to 40% of Ashkenazi Jews. Okay, in particular, this one here, K1A1B1A, is a mother to 20% of Ashkenazi, which means that she has literally 1.7 million Ashkenazi descendants. And so, of course, these names are, you're not going to see these names in the Torah, right? But these names are actually the names that we don't know who these people are, of course, right? These names just characterize the mutations on the mitochondrial DNA that characterize them. Okay, so who are the Jews? Okay, so what do we know? So we know that actually the Jews did get inherent from some ancient Jewish population. That's pretty clear now. There's also ancestry from the ancient European and Middle Eastern population. So particularly 2,000 years ago, there's a large number of conversions and when the population grew, and so there's actually definitely ancestry from both directions. And also what we know is among Ashkenazi Jews, there's a very small number of people that founded that population. What we don't know many things. For example, we don't even know the percentages of DNA that came from these 2 sources for either of these populations. So there's still a lot to do, and this is a kind of a new field and very exciting area. Okay, so that's it. Thanks.